Hello, Betty. How are you?
Hello, I'm Betty Casey. I'm editor of Tulsa Kids Magazine, and we partnered with the Children's Hospital at St. Francis to bring you important information regarding children's health. And today, excuse me, we're talking with Dr. David George, a pediatrician. I'm sorry, I need a
You're
doctor.
fine.
A pediatrician with Warren Clinic. Welcome, Dr. George.
Thank you very much. I am pleased to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Um, I know that we're heading into the summer.
Yeah,
Memorial Day is coming up, which we think of as the beginning of summer. So we think of safety.
very much so.
Today we're going to talk about, I guess, water safety and ATV, UTV accidents.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the statistics and why it's important that parents are aware of these two dangers?
Yes, very much so. So swimming, water safety is hugely important. Everybody who has kids should be aware where they are around the water because drowning, unfortunately, even in today's day and age, with the improvement in safety devices, fences around pools, all the things that we have now, is still the leading cause of death in kids 1 to 4. So it's still terrible. And we do what we can to reduce that. But one of the things that we always talk about is having an adult around the pool, having somebody who's present around the pool, or whether that be a pond or whether that be the beach, because a lot of people are going to go out. If you're on a boat, making sure that there's a responsible adult who's always paying attention to the kids, making sure that they have their life jackets on. And some of that even goes down to, like, if you're out on a boat, being a good example and having that life jacket on yourself, even if it might be kind of lame. Have that on yourself. That way you set a good example for the kids, and they can do that as well. But teaching kids to swim, hugely important. I'm a big advocate for kids taking swim lessons, whether that be the infant classes all the way up to once kids are getting confident in swimming. Sometimes problems arise when kids get a little too confident in swimming, and that, especially in that right around 2 to 3 into young fours, they're very confident in their skills that they do not have oftentimes. So that's hugely important. And one of the things I do for my own kids is anytime they're around water, make sure to have their life vest on them unless they are actively leaving the area that there is water. Have that life vest on them. We don't recommend pool floaties, like the little arm ones that go around the
I was gonna,
biceps.
I was going to ask about that. Some is that a false sense of security with
It's a
floaties, or
very
is that
false sense of security because you can imagine what happens is they float off the kids' arms. The kids just sit there with their arms up, and it's not actually helpful at all. So whenever people go to the store, any store, they're going to have life vests that are rated by the appropriate safety industries for kids' weight. So making sure to look at your kid's most recent weight and picking the appropriate life vest for them, whether that be for an infant, whether they have the chest belt with the little arm things attached as well, or if it be the more traditional, like boating style life vest with kind of a collar on the back. Really making sure to have the appropriate size, weight for your child,
yeah,
and making sure
because
they wear it
if
anytime they're around.
yeah, so if they don't fit correctly, they could float up off
Yes,
of the child. So it's important to know that they're fitted correctly.
very much so.
So around a pool or around any body of water, then making sure there is a designated adult to watch
Hmm.
that child or the children in the water, I guess, is
Yes.
important. Making sure they're wearing life vests that fit. Around a, are there other things around a pool? I mean, would we hear splashing if a child fell into the
Not
water?
always. Not
So
always.
you,
So we always hear stories where kids have fallen in the pool, and there may have been adult like there 1 second and they turn their back and then they see a kid at the bottom of the pool, unfortunately, and it's terrible, but it happens a lot. So you might not
yeah,
hear splashing. Fences around pools are very helpful. Those are starting to become a lot more in vogue, where pool installers actually almost mandate that people have some sort of safety device installed around their pool. There's also
yeah,
alarms that people can put in their pools, and those do help a little bit, but the fences help a little bit more. But paramount is going to be the adult around the pool as well.
right, right. Having somebody that is watching that child at all times.
Yes.
Um, So, so with, and you mentioned a really startling statistic to me that it's that drowning is the leading cause of death for children aged 1 to 4. Is that
Hmm.
was that correct?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a startling statistic.
Yes, it's terrible.
And and having swimming lessons is very important.
Hmm. Yeah, but never letting your child be overconfident in the water, even until they're really good at it. Because some kids will
Yeah.
be gung ho about it and they'll be like, I know how to swim. I'm going to go jump in the water, but they may not be ready yet. And it
Right.
goes around the lakes, it goes around the pools, it goes around the ocean. Even a lot of people who live out in the country might have farm ponds. It goes with those as well. Just making sure that
Mhm.
you kind of know where your kids are getting around the water.
Mhm. And thinking of bodies of water like lakes and ponds, jumping into those bodies of water, I guess we need to warn our children about that as well.
Yeah, because you never know how deep the water is in those areas, especially in some of the area lakes where a lot of people go jumping off of cliffs into the water. A lot of people know people who have maybe landed on something that hurt them. So we never know how deep the water is in those areas that we're jumping off of. So it's inadvisable for any child to be doing that, even
Right.
with adult supervision.
Right. Well, and also I was thinking about lifeguards. I had 2 kids who were lifeguards. Does that give people a false sense of security sometimes? I know that they ended up sort of being babysitters to a
Yeah,
lot of
yes.
children who couldn't swim.
Exactly. So anytime there's a lifeguard on duty, it is still the adult's responsibility to watch the kid. Now they will be able to help out if something bad is happening, but even for my own kids, like there were lifeguards and one of them jumped in the pool and within one half a second they were at the bottom of the pool already. And if we hadn't been watching, they would have stayed there probably for a couple seconds longer. And having that
Yeah.
lifeguard present is helpful, but the parents should always be watching the kids because they can always jump in, and lifeguards are responsible for the whole pool. They're watching the rowdy teenagers. They're watching,
Right.
maybe it's not, who knows what they're watching at the time, but they usually do a fantastic job.
Yeah, they do. I have to say they do a good job.
Yes.
But I think in a busy pool, sometimes they might miss something. So it's always good to have an adult there as
Yeah.
well.
They might be watching 100 people, not the 2-year-old that just ran over and jumped in.
And they just slipped in, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the other danger that you wanted to talk about today, accidents on ATVs and UTVs.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Would you allow your children to ride an ATV?
I don't have an ATV, so it's an easy answer for me. No, I wouldn't, especially alone and especially without a helmet. Kids shouldn't ride ATVs until they're about 16 years old. A lot of people
Okay.
in Oklahoma, we're a fairly rural state, so a lot of kids are out on them earlier than that. But especially if they're alone, they shouldn't be on it until they're 16. People do it all the time with their kids. Make sure they have a helmet on if they're going to do it at all. It's not something that we would advise as pediatricians to do it at all, being on an ATV with little kids, just because kids fall off, kids get wiggly. Sometimes that happens and kids end up falling off, or your kid wiggles and you get off balance and you unfortunately roll the ATV. And Oklahoma is huge in the amount of accidents that we have with all-terrain vehicles and ATVs, or ATVs and
UT,
UTVs.
yeah, UTVs.
Yeah.
UTVs are the bigger ones. I had to actually look that up. They're the
Yeah.
bigger ones. You can have. They're more related to work on farms and
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that. So,
Usually that,
yeah.
or like people will take them out hunting, stuff like that. So they're also not quite as stable as they could be. But
Mhm.
helmet safety is huge. So if your 16-year-old is going to be on them, making sure that they're wearing their helmet. And like we talked about with the pool being on the boat, part of it goes back to role modeling. So if an adult is on the ATV or the UTV, I don't know about UTVs quite as much, but ATVs, you should always wear a helmet because your head is going to be one of the most unprotected things on that. So making sure that you wear a helmet, even if it's not necessarily the cool thing to do, even if it's going to mess up your hair or something like that, it's always super important to do. So role modeling it for your children and having the helmets for your children in readily available places and encouraging them anytime they get on it, wear a helmet. If you do happen to ride it with your younger kids, making
Mhm.
sure they're wearing a helmet and you're wearing a helmet, just making sure you're a good role model.
Mhm. Well, being a good role model, and also probably talking to, if your child is going to a pool with friends or neighbors, or riding, maybe going somewhere where they might ride an ATV, talking to parents or your child about some of those rules
Yeah.
regarding that might be a good idea.
Yeah, it would definitely be big, especially if they're the age where they can kind of understand that. Now, there will be peer pressure that where they'll jump in the pool or do things, but letting them know, like, hey, this is what I expect out of the situation. I expect you
Mhm.
to wear your life vest. I expect you to wear your helmet. Make sure those happen. And even telling the parents it's okay to protect your own kids by talking to their friends' parents.
Yeah. Sometimes I think we're a little hesitant to do that, but I think
Yeah,
especially in the summer when we're all together, I think that's kind of an important thing to remember, that
yeah,
maybe those parents don't have the same rules, letting the other parents know what our rules are as well.
yeah. Or grandparents sometimes as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So do you have any other recommendations for safety during this time?
Yeah.
I guess you see a lot of these accidents coming in, and so
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, one of the big things that I care about a lot, I love biking. I'm a huge advocate for cycling in the community with the Tulsa Tough coming up and not too long as well. Kids, it's been a tradition for my family to go down and watch it or even try to ride in it. But bike safety is huge. Bikes are a huge tool that children can use, whether that be riding to school, whether that be for getting around for exercise, whether it be for fun. It's huge. So kids should be riding their bikes safely. So kind of like we already talked about with the ATVs, kids wearing their helmets is huge. No, when we were kids, nobody likes to wear their helmet necessarily because you're like, oh, only the dorky kids wear their helmet. But it's again one of those things that adults should role model for their kids. So for me, I always role model it by wearing my helmet when I'm out biking. Even if you're just for a jaunt around the neighborhood, you should always wear a helmet. Encourage your kids to wear helmets and making sure that they fit appropriately as well is
Right, right.
huge. So making sure they have on at the right shoes. So riding a bike in sandals is inadvisable because kids are going to probably end up stopping with their feet. And if they're wearing sandals, those could come off and then they're going to be stopping with their feet. They may not stop at all. Who knows? So that's one of the things that I'm also a huge advocate for is just making sure kids are safe on bikes because bikes are fun, they're useful, they're a big tool that people use them a little bit more in our societies. I think we could get around a little bit easier and kids could have more fun. So that's one of the
Yeah,
things I also care about.
and we have a lot more bike trails in Tulsa these days. So I think
Yes.
we have so many more opportunities to do that. So
Yeah.
reminding our kids about some of those safety things, and as you said, being a good role model in all of these areas is so important
Yeah. Yeah.
for
A lot of
parents.
Turkey Mountain they've made
Yes.
trails that are even friendly for some kids. In Claremore, they have some areas there. There's some trails for mountain biking. So again, making sure to protect those kids' brains because they got a
Yeah,
lot of time that they're going to use them for.
exactly. And it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be the bad guy and make kids do it, right?
Be the dorky kid on the block.
Yeah. I think become a little bit cooler to wear helmets. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what they see in Tulsa Tough.
Yeah.
They see all these
Definitely.
bikers, professional people wearing helmets. So that's good.
Yep.
That's
It
good.
becomes a little bit more acceptable. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah. So I think these are great tips. I think remembering pool safety tips, remembering if you're going to do ATVs, you recommend not younger than 16. But
Yeah.
if you're going to do it, protect your head. And of
Always
course,
protect your head.
with biking, of course, we want to remember that we need to protect our heads there, and also being good. I love that you said we should all be good role models for our kids.
Yeah. It is.
That's
It's huge because kids are going to do what they see. We can tell them till
exactly.
we're blue in the face, but they're always going to do what they see.
Exactly. Well, Dr. George, I really appreciate you coming to talk to us today. And this, of course, will be on Tulsa Kids. We'll have the whole transcript on Tulsa Kids if you want to read it. And then I want everybody to look in our magazine for PJ's Corner, where we have lots of great tips like this in the magazine. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate the Children's Hospital at St. Francis for partnering with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Betty.